Alright, today we're going to be talking about how to export your videos from Final Cut Pro the best way, the fastest way, the best ever. And I'm going to go through every single detail in this video, but I'm not going to waste your time because that stuff will come at the end. So I'm going to tell you what the best settings is at the beginning. I've got the notes right here. And pretty much the one setting you want to avoid when exporting your video is exporting for Apple devices. At least use computer. And if you look at the size, when you use computer, the estimate here is 900 megabytes. And when I switch over to Apple devices, it goes down to 450. It is half the size for a reason. And the reason is the quality that it spits out is awful. And we're going to look at the Apple devices version. And you can see it looks like a raggedy mess, the hair in particular. Let's go in there and let's see all these crazy strands. And if you don't notice it when you first export it, you will notice it when YouTube's done with it. So I have been exporting in pretty much every single setting in the history of the world, in compressor, all that kind of stuff. And pretty much for my MacBook Pro, the best setting probably is HEVC, and you will need an app called Compressor for that. That guy, I could export this 5.5 minute clip in 2.5 minutes, pretty much 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Whereas if I export it using the computer format, that guy would export at 5 minutes and 43 seconds. Now regarding all of the other export types, to be honest with you, I was pixel peaking, I zoomed in 300%, all that kind of nonsense, and they were pretty much the same. There were bits and bobs, slight differences with the number of hair strands and all that stuff I could see, and I will go through all the details there, but pretty much... Just look at that, look at the knuckles. You can see this bump. These bumps over here. However, HEVC, it just gets all completely lost. And the fingers, the details just disappear. You still see it in computer. Let's say HEVC, you maintain that beautiful line over there of the arm. Whereas 422 looks slightly better. But computer looks very, very blocky at the moment. Look at the hair. More defined in 422. HEVC very defined. But computer looks the worst. So it is a bit of a balance picking between HEVC and computer. Even when you export it as ProRes 422, you'll be very, very hard to depict the difference between that and all the other formats, including HEVC. What I recommend you do is in Compressor, I duplicate the HEVC template and I'd modify it to support network streaming. So that makes YouTube encode it a lot quicker because it can start encoding it as you're uploading the video. And secondly, I'd up the default bitrate from auto and I made mine 20,000. It does make the file size bigger, but the quality is slightly more crisper at the end. And I tested all my results after YouTube's gone through with it. So I'm showing you the business. All right, so the video I'm exporting here today is Dr. Nora's Cryomed butt lift video. She's using a medical EMF device to make her booty bigger. It's a pretty fun video. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And pretty much when you share your project, by default, you'll see something called Apple devices. And if you go into settings, you get some video codec options, faster encode and better quality. Better quality is actually twice as slow as faster encode, and the difference is marginal. I'm going to show you all that. But the one format you want to change is don't use Apple devices, use computer instead. Look at the file size difference. This one's exporting at 900 megabytes, whereas Apple devices is half that, and it's half that for a reason, because the quality is abysmal. I've exported a lot of different options: 422 LT, 422, H264 in master, HEVC, a bumped up version of HEVC, Compressor H264, 1080p computer faster, and Apple devices. And let's look at the file sizes here. So we can see that 422 is 5.2 gigabytes, and this is for a 5-minute clip. Now, if you appreciate quality, the best quality, you can switch over to 422 LT and it's very, very similar. However, the file size is reduced, but again, 422 is better quality, and I'm going to show you the difference in a second. You can export as a master as H264. I'll show you that one. So if you go to master file, settings, instead of ProRes 422, you can switch it over to H264, and that guy, the quality is good. But, you know, I found it not to be as good as some of the other exports you can get, but the file size there is only 575. Apple devices, that's 450. And then there's computer, that one is a lot more intensive. So that one comes up to about 900 megs. And both faster and better quality, there is marginal difference. Better quality does eat up slightly more. You can see it's using up 9 more megabytes than faster. However, the coolest one I found, and you'll need a Mac with a T2 device to get these kind of results, and that is if you use HEVC. So with HEVC, you get really good quality at the lowest file size. That's 332 megabytes using auto quality. And if I boost up the kilobits a second, you get excellent quality at the fastest export times. Now, I've also downloaded a video after YouTube's got away with it, and YouTube does encode the videos slightly differently. So for example, the 1080p computer export, that was 167 megabytes, whereas 422 was 168, and 422 LT was 168.3. Interesting stuff for you to check out. But anyway, let's go check out the quality. So first, I'm going to show you the quality that Final Cut Pro spits out. And I'm looking at the Apple devices version. This is at a 400% zoom, hardly any hair strand over here. A nice, thick, juicy piece of hair over there. Lots of pixelated hairs over there. I'll zoom in a bit more to show you what's going on. So you can see a lot more detail in the hairs, and it's a lot more crisper when you switch between Apple and computer faster. Going from computer faster to computer, you can see a little bit more details here. Let's look at this push in a bit more to see what's going on. And look, so when it's exporting as faster quality, you can see maybe one hair strand over here, whereas when you make it better quality, you can see 2 hair strands. Here, this part looks very blurry, whereas when you make it better quality, you can see a lot more detail. So that's the difference between better quality and faster. Now, exporting as a master H264, it's very, very hard to tell the difference. To be honest, for me, exporting it as a computer format, that is a lot better quality for me, not master. And you can see over here, H264 master, it just looks a bit blocky. I'm going to zoom in a bit more. Whereas this one, when you export it as 1080p computer, it looks a lot more straight, the lines. Maybe it's a better algorithm that's being used, better quality, and the file size, of course, is slightly bigger. Now, we've got our king. So our king at the moment is 1080p computer. Let's switch over to ProRes 422. I'm going to keep this zoom level 400 and 400, so we're really pixel peaking. So 422. It looks about the same, but to be honest, the curve on 422 LT is a lot more crisp, in my opinion, than 1080p computer. And you can kind of see like a little bit more details in the hair, just ever so slightly. Maybe, it's hard to tell. I'll play it back a second. Let's see what that shows. Yeah, you can see that the line's a lot more smoother with 422 LT. So let's switch up to 422. So 422 looks even more crisp than 422 LT. This is 422 LT. This is 422. The lines are a lot more crisp. But again, the quality isn't that far apart. So let's switch over back to 1080p computer. It does look a bit more blocky, but not that much of a difference. It's not the difference you're going to be getting between 422 or computer and Apple devices. When you switch over to Apple devices, look here, it is blurry AF. Do not use Apple devices. All right, Compressor H264, it's worse than 422. Comparing it to 1080p computer, it's about the same, about the same. Now let's see what HEVC gives us. Looking at HEVC versus the computer setting, you can see that a lot of detail is lost in the hair. Look over here, you can't see much going on. Whereas when you switch over to computer, you can see a lot more strands, a lot less blurry. Now, if you use HEVC with a bumped up kilobits per second, it still looks a bit blurry over here compared to computer, where you see a little bit more detail. And that kind of like is the situation you'll see all over the shop. So this is HEVC, maximum quality. And this is computer. Let's switch between the two. They look very, very similar. Apple devices, that's the kind of state of the hair. Switching up to computer. This one's a cool example. So let's switch over to faster. And look at the logo. The logo just changes completely. You get like an emboss effect over here. And let's make it better quality. So the emboss effects disappears a little bit between faster and better quality. To be honest with you, all of these guys export well, except Apple devices doesn't look as good around the hair in this motion compared to this one. You see a lot more detail. However, let's see what happens when we push it through YouTube, because this whole equation changes, surprisingly. All right, so I've switched everything off, and we're going to look at the Apple devices version, and you can see it looks like a raggedy mess, the hair in particular. Let's go in there and let's see all these crazy strands, what's going on here. So previously, only the Apple devices version's hair looked different, all the other ones looked about the same, whereas now 422 LT, you can see a lot more detail coming in with the hair. Let's see 422. So with 422 LT, you can see a little bit of hair here, and then it kind of fades away over here, whereas with 422, you can see a lot more of a straight line. You can see a lot more crisper of the hairlines. The eyebrows actually look nicer in 422 LT, whereas with 422, it looks a bit more jaggedy, but I guess that's more detail we're seeing. Next up, let's go to computer faster. It gets a lot worse compared to 422. You see the hair strand's a bit lost. Let's see 1080p computer. Now, look at this. Here we've been seeing only one strand of hair. With 1080p computer, you actually see two strands of hair. And that is just mental for me. Look, it's kind of like a blurry mess over here. And that's better quality computer. So, better quality can get you slightly more hairs. I think I'm going a bit mental with this stuff. But even 422, look, it looks like one strand of hair, and you can't see the second strand. Or with 1080p computer, you can actually see two strands of hair. It's crazy. And the hair gets longer here. So you get pros and cons all over the shop. Let's go to Master H264. It's just one strand of hair here. So here, 1080p computer is probably the best one. Let's see how HEVC handles it. HEVC, you can see two strands of hair, but it's very blurry over here. Very blurry all over the shop, and I'm doing an aggressive zoom. So I'm doing 400 zoom here plus 300% zoom here. So you're not going to see it when it's at 100%, but I'm just showing you so you know what the best quality is after YouTube's done with it. Let's see HEVC at 20 kilobits a second. You're not getting any more detail in that second piece of hair. You're getting detail here. Look, you can see a line coming out here. It looks a lot more crisp than this blurry mess. So pumping up the kilobits a second in HEVC does make a difference. Let's compare that to 1080p computer. Yeah, it looks better than 1080p computer. 1080p computer looks like a blurry mess up in here. You can't see much details in the eyes. Whereas here, it looks a lot more crisper. Let's compare that to 422. 422. It just looks slightly different. Let's play it back a little bit and swap them over. I'd say even it's hard to tell which is better. Hard to tell. That's 422, that motion there, and this is HEVC, that motion there. So I give it to 422. 422 does look better in motion. Let's see 1080p computer, how that one looks. Compare it to 422. They look about the same. It's just the blocks start off in different positions. Alright, let's whittle this down on the actual YouTube page. And we can see here, this is the maximum HEVC version. This one is ProRes, and this is 1080p computer. And let's look at the actual knuckles, because this part's very interesting. So computer, you can see the knuckles. ProRes, you can see the knuckles. However, HEVC, look at that. Look at the detail. It just disappears. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is HEVC. And this is 422. Look at that. Just look at that. Look at the knuckles. You can see this bump, these bumps over here. However, HEVC, it just gets all completely lost. And the fingers, the details just disappear. You still see it in computer. But yeah, so even at maximum quality HEVC, you get some missing artifacts like that. Let's jump a few frames. This is my face getting injected. I guess this part, look at that. Let's zoom into this blurred out the needle here. It looks very, very blurry. Whereas 422, you can make out a lot more of the detail, like the fingers going there, whereas this looks like a blurry mess. And computer looks very, very similar to 422. Let's jump to the next frame. All right, let's look at the eyelashes over here. So this is HEVC. 422 looks more crisper. Computer looks the worst one out of the lot. Let's say HEVC, you maintain that beautiful line over there of the arm, whereas 422 looks slightly better, but computer looks very, very blocky at the moment. Look at the hair, more defined in 422, HEVC very defined, but computer looks the worst. So it is a bit of a balance between picking between HEVC and computer. Obviously the best one is 422. You do get some weird artifacts like the one I showed you with the fingers and the hands, but generally it's not that noticeable unless you really look for it. I guess if I was you and you had 2018 MacBook Pro, I'd go for HEVC and bump up the quality to 20 kilobits a second, and I'll show you how to do that actually. So what you got to do is use an app called Compressor. I go over to HEVC 8-bit, I right click on that, I say duplicate, and you can give that a name. And what you want to do is you want to optimize for network use, so when you pump it to YouTube it can start encoding it as you're uploading it. And in video I turn off automatic and I just bump up the kilobits a second. 20, that's a good size. And that would mean that if I export a video, for example if I export this file, if I were to export as Apple devices, I'd normally get 450. If I were to export it as HEVC, I'd normally get 350, whereas my custom version, because I'm using a higher bitrate, I export as 800 megabytes, which is the same sort of level as 1080p computer, but the encode speed is twice as fast. Hope you found that useful. All right, hope you found this video enlightening. As you can see, HEVC is the smallest file size and the fastest to convert on this MacBook Pro. I'm amazed, I'm impressed. That's my new default setting. Hope you enjoyed it and found something useful. Let me know, what encoding settings do you use?
I also feel that my legs are contracting as well. Like, not only is my butt contracting, but my hamstrings and my quads are contracting, so it feels so funny. Oh God. This is such a weird, she did. It's such a weird sensation.